Couple of quick observations from the earlier conversation. In my work with teacher preparation programs, at least the ones that I've had conversations with in our state and some of the states I've been asked to help with, I haven't yet detected a real consensus around some of the issues of what good preparation looks like that I resonate. When I hear Deb say it, I said, that sounds right, yes, I'm in, yes. But when I go out and I meet and we start to have a conversation about what effective reading instruction looks like, what effective secondary mathematics instruction looks like, there are folks ready to strap it on and have a good, robust argument. And so I think part of it is can you get the field, can you get the field to consent to these are the right answers? Okay, and so for example, I'm a psychologist by training. There are certain things that both by professional standards, state licensing standards, healthcare standards, I mean, they're not really negotiable anymore. That's what you have to do. But could we get education to say these are the things and that we all agree to them? Secondly, if you have that, do states have the capacity to measure them? Well, I'll go one further. Currently, I don't know that our prep programs, our providers all have the capability to measure them. And certainly the big challenge would be, while you can measure them if you're resourced appropriately and have the level of supervision during the clinical experiences to do them that you ought to have, but then to actually measure them after they've left you and they've scattered over many thousands of square miles, I mean, that gets to be, it's like there needs to be a handoff in which the provider and the state are now in collaboration, because the state does have the statewide reach. But states aren't resourced to do this. There's no mystery. We've talked about it a few times as to why states haven't identified any low-performing institutions. Given the nature of the measures that they have available to them, you wouldn't either. Yeah. If you looked at the things that fed into these higher education evaluations, the nature of the data are such. And so if you want to know something different, you're going to have to create systems to capture new knowledge. So like having really substantive, meaty, down in the trenches, are kids getting the experiences in classes that will cause them to learn, so that people are exhibiting exemplary teaching, then who's going to go? Who's going to observe? How will it be recorded? And how will we stop it from becoming, we had sort of a system like that in Louisiana. It was called the Teacher Assistance and Assessment Program, which was supposed to be rigorous. We retired it because 98% of everybody passed, and then the cases where people didn't pass were kind of famous for things being really off kilter. And so we started with something it was built around something called the Components of Effective Teaching. It didn't have 19, but it was perhaps a lower tech, perhaps a lower cost, perhaps one state kind of fumbling along trying to do the right thing by itself. But one of the things we ran into in the end is we couldn't get calibration on the assessment to make it as rigorous as we wanted it to be. And we in the end decided, and it was expensive. It was a big state investment. And so the thought was, well, if we're going to spend a lot of money and it basically says everybody passes, and it involved observation of classroom teaching and conferencing and people outside the school. And so I think I don't have any reluctance to say that my perception is what Deb is talking about would be good for kids, would be good for schools. States currently are not built or resourced to be very effective partners in this, not in my state and a bunch of others that I know quite well. It is not that it is impossible, but to have substantive evaluators who are calibrated to judge rigorously, who will travel the thousands of square miles in these states and get in those classrooms and sit down and watch and provide substantive feedback, is going to be hard. And that is a radical change. If you assume that the state's going to do it before certification or as a way of giving feedback to programs, that is a radical change in the state role. That is not something that states are geared up to do.
And there's nothing on states' plates anyway, right? We're not asking states to do anything else.
We're really pretty much just hanging out.
It's not the proper role of a state. I mean, states aren't in the business of doing that kind of work. They tried for years. They collected syllabi, and what would they do with them? They put the syllabi in a drawer. They never look at them. They don't know what's going on. They do program approvals. It works the same way. They go out and they talk to the dean and spend a few hours talking to the faculty and administration. And I mean, states are not going to be the right vehicle for doing the kind of work Deborah's talking about. What states can do is they can make sure there's a really good licensing test in place. You know, that's how you hold ed schools up, that they can't do the kind of work you're talking about.